Are there any more young conservatives out there? Is a great red wave coming through Illinois and the United States, maybe? Perhaps my guest today, Cat Petersen, can shed some light on those questions. So, Cat, thank you so much for coming on. It's a pleasure to have you.
Oh, it's a pleasure being here. This is a really cool setup, and I love the Paul Garcia show. I really do love all of the local people that you get on, and I've really started to take a liking to Bloomington Normal because of you. Oh. So I love the show. I do. I didn't think I was going to like Bloomington Normal, and then the Paul Garcia show showed me some really cool characters in our community, and it is like we're all living a big story, and we're all just characters in this big story, and we're contributing to the community. So you do a good job of showcasing that.
Well, thank you so much. You're too kind. But for people that don't know you very well, maybe tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
Yeah, so I am a show host, a morning show host at Cities 92.9, and it's affiliated with Great Plains Media. I've worked a lot with David Paul Blumenshine and Kevin Ferris, who also are our show hosts, Eddie Monk from Turning Point USA and the College Republicans. They also have a show that was kind of a decision we came to incorporate the younger conservative voice, because we are reaching an era where we are we're grasping at straws, and we really do need to have the young Republicans come out and express their voice, because I feel like it's kind of lacking. But we do have other show hosts. I just do the morning show in the morning, and then I also have Conservative Cat from 5 to 7 on Saturdays. So I just kind of started this job, a fresh grad out of Illinois State University, and I graduated with a journalism degree, and I worked at WGLT. It was an NPR affiliated station. I also worked at WZND, which was a kind of a commercial format. It was like pop music for the station, and it was the campus radio station. And then my faculty advisor, Steve Cease, was working at Great Plains Media, and he had kind of said, like, well, what about this job? Because I had asked him about it. I was like, okay, so I listen to Cities. I'm kind of a conservative, and I was very closeted conservative in college, because I was scared of what people would think of me. And I just one day closed the door behind me in Steve's office, and I said, you know, you think I could get into Cities 92.9? And he goes, I think you could. And we tried, and I interviewed, and I got the job as a morning show producer for Scott Robbins, who's just known everywhere. He's got a big national syndicated show. It's called Markley, Van Camp and Robbins. And I started morning show producing. So that's just like pushing buttons and smiling. And then occasionally I'd throw in some like interjections into the show. But then it just kind of grew. And then I just became a morning show host. And I've been doing this a year now. And I'm having a blast doing news stories and creating commercials, writing promos, and then also doing the morning show.
Is there any interesting reason why you left the other radio stations?
Yeah, so actually, I was face-to-face with a decision. I was considering going with NPR, and going to Peoria actually was on my radar for WCBU, which is a Peoria NPR affiliate, and it's based out of Bradley University, and I was considering that. But there was something that just, I prayed about it. I'm a big Christian, and I'm a believer, and I just prayed probably for about a week. It was probably the hardest week of my life. I don't know why. It was just awful. Because I'm not great at making decisions. I always just want to like weigh the options, make sure everybody is happy with the decision that I come to. And I just kind of said, you know what, I'm going to do something that I think I am going to excel in, and something that's going to make me happy. You know, no amount of money, no amount of like pleasing other people. All of the friends that I made at Illinois State University, it's not for them, right? Like, I'm not going to make it or take a job for them. I've got to take a job that's where I'm going to be happy and where I can live out my values. And I had heard that message in church one day, and I was like, I'm going to live out my values, and I'm going to ask Steve tomorrow on Monday about getting that job at Cities 92.9, because I feel like my values are reflected in this company, and I feel like my values will be appreciated in this company, Great Plains Media. So that's how it came to be.
Is 92.9 then an openly conservative radio station?
Yes, we are. We are conservative news talk. And it's the same thing that if it, we've had people say, well, why don't you incorporate the other side? Why don't you, have a different type of voice or a different type of show that encapsulates maybe a little bit more of the left thinker? Not that left thinkers are completely wrong all of the time. Some things are out there, and we can talk about that. But I'm telling you, you don't put Katy Perry on a classic rock station. You just don't. And you don't put, rap music on a country station. You just don't. Because our listeners and the listeners that tune in to Cities 92.9, they come for a specific product. And that product is conservative news talk. And they want to, it's a family. And you wouldn't, show up one day and, have a stranger join your family. It'd be like, you walk in one day and you're like, Mom, who's that kid over there? Oh, I picked him up off the street. That's why we don't do left-leaning shows. So it is conservative news talk. We got Glenn Beck, we've got Sean Hannity, Mark Levin, and they're all on Fox News. And then we also play Fox News at the top of every hour.
Okay, got it. Yeah, so it's obvious. People tune in to Cities 92.9 for a certain genre of talk and music, and you give them that because if you don't, they'll leave and then you don't make money. It's just business, Yeah. People tune into you guys for a reason because this is how they think. This is what they want to hear about. They want to hear news through maybe a conservative lens, if that's fair to say. But I liked one thing that you said. You said the left and liberals aren't wrong on all fronts necessarily. So I want to challenge you and say, what front aren't they wrong in? What's something the left side of the aisle is doing well?
There's something to be said about leftists who advocate for things like, I would say climate change is one of those things that I've always been kind of wishy-washy on as a conservative. I do think that they go about it the wrong way, asking the EPA to help you with all of your problems and looking to the government, because the EPA is basically an arm branch of the government. Looking to the government for all of your solutions is usually where the left goes wrong. But there's something to be said about taking care of our planet and conserving it and doing the best we can to make sure it's here for later generations. And I think the left has a great idea about recycling and trying to conserve and this new push for electric vehicles. All for it, right? But you start to go down a very slippery slope when you start looking for government to help you and not God and not like yourself, and taking a personal evaluation of, hey, how can I independently help our planet in an example? So I would say that sometimes, the left is, when I say the left, there is a clear, there's a left, and then there's somebody who has a rational approach to certain things in politics, like a Democrat approach or a more left-leaning approach to policy. And I don't know where that rational side is at. It seems like more and more every day. And as somebody who tracks the news on a regular basis, it just has become increasingly more left-leaning. Mm-hmm.
You've said a couple times now, you've mentioned God. How central is God or religion, or perhaps Judeo-Christianity to be more specific? How central is God to the conservative way of thinking and maybe to being a Republican? Can someone be a Republican or a conservative and not believe in God? How central is that to the way you think?
So I really do think that the U.S. Constitution and the Bible are two forms of literature that every person should have in their back pocket. I've got them in my truck, and I read them every day. And I think that the Constitution is based off those Judeo-Christian values. And I think that there is something to be said about somebody who actually follows Christ or has some sort of faith, right? Maybe it's not Christian, maybe it's not, but there's something to be said about a higher being, and it keeps us all in check, and it helps us from keeping our eyes on something other than government to fix all of our problems, right? You can look to God, you can look to fellowship, people of like mind to help you out. And those are things that the Bible teaches. And there's things in the Constitution that point to, I mean, under God, the Pledge of Allegiance, they added that under God phase for a reason, or phrase, because it truly, I think you can be a Republican and not have faith, but it's very, very hard because a lot of that policy is rooted in those Judeo-Christian values that we find in our Constitution, and then also that independent thinker, right? You can be an independent thinker, a free thinker, when you have faith of some kind and when you're not constantly looking to government to solve all your problems.
Mm-hmm. And you're right. Faith, or at least the idea that we're all infinitely valuable in the eyes of God because we are creations of God, is central to the Constitution, to the foundation of the United States as we know it. And so even if you don't believe, you're still living such a good life here in this country because of the beliefs held by the founding fathers. That's why it's foundational, So yes, religion, specifically Christianity, you could say Judeo-Christianity, but they were all Christian, the founding fathers, I mean. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's absolutely fundamental to the American way of life.
I do think that if there's right, Paul, like if there's Republicans who just can't find God, and I do believe that, like, there's been times in my faith where it gets shaky and I'm just like, I don't even know. And I can see where somebody is in that position and they might not believe in God, but you have to recognize that the reason why this country is so great is because it is rooted in that Constitution, which has Judeo-Christian values embedded into that document. And you can't, it's irrefutable. And if you recognize that, and maybe you're not of faith and you have respect for it, then you could serve the constituents.
Right. I agree entirely. Yes, even if you don't believe, you have to acknowledge where these things came from. And you kind of have to, swallow your pride and say, although I don't believe in this God, because people did believe in this God, it's really made a phenomenal society, I guess, or at least a constitution. So for that, I'm grateful, You can be conservative and you can be a Republican and not believe, but it would make a lot of sense to have a faith, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that and it's just something that it really struck a chord with me when I graduated college, because I had never gone to church while I was in college, and I didn't know why. I didn't understand why. And I think it does have something to do with the way higher education is set up. They just don't prioritize it. In fact, I would even go as far as to say they demolish it. Anything that has to do with Christianity or actually following faith, they try to bury it with a lot of things that are sinful. There is a whole, hookup culture in college. There's a whole push for LGBTQ students and a push for LGBTQ. I'm not trying to go there, but I am going to say that there is a push for these things that directly conflict with my beliefs as a Christian, and you don't feel like it's an inclusive environment when you're a Christian on campus. And I came to terms with that as soon as I was graduating, and I was like, this is the direction I'm going to go, because I really do want to live my life and live out the values of my life. And the best way to do that is to not work for somebody who's going to demolish or try to destroy your faith, even inadvertently. Like, they might not even overtly come after you for your faith, but they might inadvertently do that by just, side remarks. Or there was one time on campus where I was wearing a cross. I wear a cross regularly. And I had a kid come up to me, and a college kid, and he was like, "So why do you wear that? Aren't you worried it's going to offend somebody?" And I was like, whoa. I was like, I'm kind of like, this guy was raging like liberal, and like I was not shocked when he had come to me with that. And I said, I was like, well, then, I mean, guess good for them, but I don't care. I will wear it proudly. And I said, I'll probably wear 2 the next day. I did. I looked at him and I go, I'm probably going to wear 2 tomorrow. So that's what I said. And guess what? I actually wear 2 now. So, and wow. He he was just like, well, I didn't mean to offend. And I was like, yeah, well, that's offensive, right? So coming after me for my religion, I don't come after you like actively to, say like the guy was, homosexual. I didn't come after him and say things about his sexuality. There was no, and that's the culture that is in higher education. And I don't think people realize it because, being a Christian, right, you don't want to fight, right? There's something in the Bible that says, you don't want to, I can't remember it, but the whole Christian values, it's based off of not fighting people and like being super, love thy neighbor as thyself, right? And I think we have a lot to lose as Christians if we start to engage. But I had enough, and I was like, look, I'm going to wear two tomorrow,
Well, surely you can say, though, that there are, very nice, gay people, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you a follow-up question here, but I have a lot of friends. I even have followers, supporters of the show. Jared, I know you're going to watch this. You're the man. But like, there's a lot of openly gay people that are really wonderful people, even Christian people. And I want to get your thoughts, first of all. What are your thoughts on the LGB community? Because I'll ask you about trans maybe later, but you said homosexuals, gay people. What's your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, well, I think that it was a mistake to pass legislation at the federal level to legalize gay marriage. And I think that leaving it up to the states, and anytime you can say no to big government, I'm an advocate for that sort of thing. I think that what you do in your private life is up to you. I would say that it's a sin. And that's just a Christian, trying to say like, yeah, that's a sin.
Gay marriage is a sin?
Gay
acts in general? Sexual acts
gay is a sin. Okay. And, I'm not afraid to say that it is a sin. It does not mean that I don't love you. It does not mean that I hate you. It does not mean that I will come after you. In fact, I have so many friends who are gay. I have so many family members who are gay. And it does not mean I love them any less. In fact, I would even go as far as to say I love you even more because I want to show you that being a Christian and show you that, the way of Christ, and that is having a heterosexual relationship is just better for your overall health. And that's just something I believe. I see it all of the time. There's a reason why suicide rates are extremely high. I mean, higher than people who lived in Auschwitz during the Holocaust. And people were killing themselves off because they didn't want to face what was happening in the concentration camps. And that's factual. If you look at the rates now of gay people, of transgender community, which is a totally different issue, if you look at those, they're just there has to be something done in order to help the gay community. And I think that Christians have been sleeping. I think that, the push for, hey, this is a sin. I'm going to love you through your sin, right? I have sin. It's not like I'm, all holy and thou, right? I have sin. I, got a tattoo. I'm trying to think of other sins.
Is that a sin?
Oh, yeah. Getting a tattoo is a sin in the Bible. It says that, treat your body as a temple. Don't deface it or something like that. That's
Are you going to get it removed?
No. No, but it does, remind me like, oh, that's sinful, right? And it is just a gauge of where you're at. But like, I would hope that somebody would love me through my sin so much to where, I say, well, I'm not going to do this anymore, and I think the church has been sleeping. It says, come as you are, right? Churches have been very inclusive. Come as you are, but you should always come as you are and then try to change into a better Christian and follow the way of Christ always. And that's what I try to do. I try to do every day.
Well, let's just keep diving into the controversial stuff here. But, okay, so you said that it is, if I understood correctly, that it's a sin to be gay. It's one thing to say that it's sinful to act sexually in a homosexual manner. It really, anything premarital, in my opinion, any sexual acts would be, yes, technically speaking, sinful. But you're saying it's not just that. It's actually, and of course, correct me if I'm not saying what you're saying, it's a sin to actually just have the attraction in your heart and mind to be attracted to the same sex. Is that correct? Please correct me if it's not, and then explain.
Yeah, no, I would say that's not correct. Like, I am not saying that being gay. I think that the act of being, gay.
Acting on the attraction.
Acting on that attraction is, I think that people really do have a hormonal imbalance, mental imbalance. I don't believe that God made us in a way that is gay, right? I don't believe that. I don't believe God made homosexuals because he created man and woman. I think that a lot of society has to do with, turning out gay. And also, internally, I think that maybe there is something that is hardwired into you that makes you attracted to the same sex. Mm-hmm. Acting on that is the act of sin. And, it's a hard thing for me to even talk about because it's like, I don't know. I've never been in those shoes, right? I'm a heterosexual woman. I have no idea. I've talked to a lot of LGBTQ members. In fact, I'm talking with a trans girl this morning about how, she just feels abandoned by the LGBTQ community. And
I hear that a lot. The trans people feel outed by...
Well, they've capitalized on them as a commodity, and they wear them like a fur coat. And that's not loving your neighbor. And it's really starting to make me mad, Paul, because it's like, stop. You can say that I don't agree with what you're doing, and I think that it's a sin, but I still love you. And what people are doing with the LGBT, this morning I saw that Taco Bell is doing some sort of brunch in the name of gay people. And it's just like, what is going on to where you are going to offend? Like, I would be so offended if you made it some sort of brunch in the name of my sexual orientation. I would be so offended, and I'm sure it offends gay people. I don't know because I don't have that attraction.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, dude, does that offend them? Because that would tick me off if, like, I've seen weird signs. It's like I was in Michigan one time. I saw on a sign outside of a door, like on this door to a store, it said, "We welcome Mexicans," or no, we welcome brown people, gay people. I'm like, gosh, and I'm brown. I'm like, I'm in this I didn't know that I was normally not welcome. Like, why you gotta say it? And
it's
a marketing
so
thing
much,
too.
and that's where I'm talking. Where there's this societal pressure. So, for example, I know somebody who's gay, and he has had a really hard time controlling his urges, and he has never acted upon those urges, but he says that he's attracted to a man. He says that it's so much harder to deal with that attraction and to deal with him being a Christian and then not acting on it. And he's trying to work that out with him and God, and he's trying to really work on that. And we should afford people that right? But I feel like the media saturation, the commoditizing, and the money making that people are making off the LGBTQ community is making it so much harder for them to deal with those feelings by themselves. And it gets back to my whole thing. Leave government out of it. Let somebody work out their own sexuality between them and God. That's between them and God and whatever partner they choose to be sleeping with. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's just my take on it, right? Just leave them alone. Leave them alone and stop pushing it down their throat. Stop creating legislation after legislation that addresses the LGBT community. Leave them alone. You're doing them a disservice by creating all of this legislation when they might not even know how they feel. My gay friend, he has no idea how he feels about anything. Like, he's gone on a few dates with some girls. He's gone on a few dates with some guys. And he's like, I just don't really want to act on it at all. He goes, I have some urges for the other, like the same sex as me. And he goes, I just don't want to act on that at all because I don't want to sin. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, you got to pray about it. I mean, the Bible is your basic instruction before leaving Earth. Pray about it, read that Bible, and, meditate on it. That's what my pastor always says.
I think it's interesting, just to kind of go with what you're saying a little bit, denying the urges. Not all of our urges are good. And I actually think that the advancement of humankind, the rapid advancement of humankind in all aspects, in our ability to live in a harmonious society, it largely comes from our ability to not act on our impure or our negative desires and urges, because we have primitive urges such as when we get mad at someone to kill them, or to sleep with multiple partners, to steal, to lie if it benefits. Like, these are natural urges inside of us, and who's to say there might not be some disordered attractions? Just to kind of go with what you're saying, to play devil's advocate, kind of against myself and against a lot of people, but again, it's not a bad thing to go against your bodily desires. In fact, it's largely the reason that we live in a society that we do, the quality of which we live in, I guess.
Yeah,
I'm kind of stumbling over my words here, but no, I mean...
No, yeah, and it kind of reminds me, and this is by no means a very small scale, right? So I was a smoker for, I don't know, a few years. I started when I graduated high school, and I started smoking. And I started controlling those urges. Like, sometimes when the weather's nice outside, I just crave a pack of smokes, and I want to go buy a pack of smokes. But I tell myself, no, that's not good for me. I don't want to do this. And that in and of itself is a good thing. And coming to that accomplishment that, hey, I was able to step outside of myself, consult with God about it, and consulted about my addiction. And addiction is a sin, right? And gluttony and things like that. So I consulted God about it and worked that out. And that made me a so much better person. And I feel like we aren't even affording our brothers and sisters, our LGBTQ community, the ability to work that out themselves. And if they do decide to, if I did decide to smoke and continue smoking, well, that's the consequences that I face, right? Maybe somebody gay acting on those urges doesn't really care about entering the eternal life of that God has for us. And that's mainly why I say what I say when I say it's a sin. And I don't think that you should be doing that, because I want to see everybody in heaven. And I truly have that belief. I truly believe that you will have eternal life if you try to make your best self. Now, I'm not a judgment, and it's up to God. Maybe God is going to be, and I think that God will, say, hey, even if you were gay, I'm going to allow you into the kingdom of eternity. In the Bible, it kind of says no. And that's why I err on the side of safety. And I just tell my gay friends, like, I think it's a sin. And there are gay friends of mine who have left me as a friend because I have said that to them. But there's also gay friends who dug into that. And like my gay friend I was talking about, he dug into that, and he was like, I am going to make sure I have Catrina in my life, because I need a friend who's going to tell me, yeah, what I'm doing is a sin, because I do believe that, because I am a gay Christian, and I need somebody in my life to continue to tell me that.
Do you believe that sin, in order to be sin, has to be a choice, a conscious choice? Yeah. I would say that you act upon sin. We have free will, so I took a lot of theology classes, and the best part about free will is that we are all able to experience life in the fullest, right? So because we have free will, we can hate somebody with all of our soul, and we have such an extreme feeling of hate. Then we also have the extreme feeling of love, and that's because God gave us that free will to do those kinds of things. I do think that we have a choice in whether or not we commit acts of sin. I do think that the attraction is so real. I do think that gay people exist. I do think that people are attracted to the same sex. It's a lot harder for you, and it sucks. I like, as a Christian and as as somebody gay, I don't know how you do it. But as my role here on Earth, if I can do the best I can as a fellowship member, and witness and try to provide as much biblical testimony, or my testimony. I don't know if it'll ever help anybody, but I don't know, try to provide fellowship to help people on their path to not committing sin probably is the best. And before we move on from this, I want to ask,
I know we got a lot of theology here, Paul.
Right. No, it's beautiful. I mean, whatever. This is where the conversation went. I think it's valuable. Is being gay a choice?
Being gay a choice? Yeah. I would say that you do have the ability to, remove yourself from, like for me, being straight is honestly a choice, right? Acting upon your sexual orientation is a choice. For me, being straight is a choice. I choose to date men. I choose to, kiss guys, right? I choose to do that sort of thing. Now, if I didn't want to act on that, and you don't, as a Christian, you're supposed to remain, not having sex until you're married. Then I choose to refrain from that type of thing, right? You choose to refrain from that type of thing. Now, whether or not you can control who you're attracted to, I don't know. I don't know. I can't control that, so obviously not, but it depends on the person. Maybe they have came up, and maybe if you're on the fence, like my friend, my gay friend, like he doesn't even know what he's attracted to or who he's attracted to. And I think there's a lot of people in that community that deal with like, I don't even know who I'm attracted to. And that's something that you got to work out yourself. And yeah, I choose to act on my sexual, acts, and I think that you can choose whether or not to act that out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We're talking a lot about faith-related things. Mm-hmm. The separation of church and state, I know that's actually not constitutional. It's not in the Constitution. If I can remember correctly, I believe it was Thomas Jefferson wrote a letter to someone, and people confuse it for being constitutional all the time. Mm-hmm. But the separation of church and state still, is that important, or do you think that perhaps specifically Judeo-Christianity, since it was a foundational component of the country, do you think that that should be baked into government at all, or should there be a clean separation of church and state?
Well, and so I think that where we are today is, and the problems we are seeing play out today in today's world, and don't tell me you don't have problems, because you're having problems. So whenever you go up to the gas station and you put your hose into the car, you have problems. And I think a lot of what we are seeing play out today is because we decided, and somebody decided, and it's definitely not in the Constitution anywhere, about the separation of church and state. I think we have gotten so far away from our Judeo-Christian values that we were founded on that's where let's try it. Let's just try it. Let's try implementing prayer in schools. It's something that we haven't done in a while. It's something that, might have been working out for our ancestors, might have been working out for history and back then. Let's try implementing prayer back in school. Let's try being more inclusive, being more diverse, and letting people express their religion. And even if you're Muslim, right? And that's the thing too, Muslim, Judea, Christian, I think it's all good. I think it's all good. I think that there's nothing to lose from having people freely and truly express their religion in every walk of life, and that's including government.
Well, what about if their religion is atheism?
If their religion is atheism, then I guess, I don't know, is it really a religion?
Right. Yeah, it's a lack thereof. Well, it is still a religion because you're subscribing to this massive narrative that governs your life. It is central to your life, so therefore it is kind of a religion. But anyway, it's not a monotheistic one, that's for sure.
Yeah,
you don't believe in
I think monotheism is something that we should embrace as a society in order for us to see benefits. Now, I do believe in the marketplace of ideas, and I believe in the marketplace of religion. The reason why Christianity is so dominant in the West and is so dominant just worldwide, I think it's one of the top religions just worldwide. I got to check my numbers again because they're falling drastically. But the reason why it has been the dominant religion is because it works for people. People are happy when they're Christians, and that's just the facts of life. You always get that feeling about somebody who's Christian, and you're like, I just don't know how they're doing it. I don't know how they're doing it. And then you ask them, how do you identify as far as faith goes? And then they say Christian. And then you're like, this makes sense. Those Christian people are just happy folk. And I think that eventually atheism would just die out because it's just not the best idea. and it's just proven. And that's kind of what we're seeing already, and now it's dying. And I do think that we need to recruit more Christians and try to witness to more people as Christians. But I think atheism would just die out, or it would just not be as prominent if we were to let the Christianity movement breathe. I think that we're working really hard to stifle it, and that's why atheists are getting so loud. That's why Scientology is getting so loud, and that's why a lot of these other religions are getting so loud, because we have worked so hard to push down Christianity.
And I do think that it would make a lot of sense to suggest, back in the day in philosophy, they used to say, a test for a philosophy of life and for a society would be, if you administered this, and this was the law of the land, this way of thinking, would it make society better or worse? Because they believed if it was true, it would make it better. If it was not true, it would make society worse. And if you could kind of calculate roughly that if everyone didn't believe in God, at least for the time being, society would be worse off, because you don't believe there's a higher good that you're trying to achieve. You don't believe there's something after death that you're striving to do good in order to get there. You might do terrible things in private, because who's going to see anyway, among many other things. I mean, you look at the worst atrocities against the human race in the last century. You look at Stalin, Mao, Nazi Germany, and you can say what you want about Hitler's Christian beliefs. He was not Christian at all. I've listened to documentaries. He was not Christian after he was baptized, when he's a little kid in the Catholic Church, I believe. But what they have in common is none of them believed that God was watching. And that's somewhat profound. It should at least give you pause. These worst crimes against humanity, the thing they had in common was they didn't believe God was watching them. They didn't believe that they would be judged later. And if you were a philosopher back in the day and you said, hey, if people think this way, what will society look like? And if you look at those examples, it's certainly not good. So I always say, believe in God or not, you ought to live, and a society ought to live as though he is real. And I think they'll be better for it until a better solution comes along. But I personally don't believe a better solution or better way of thinking will come along. So I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, well, and you bring up a good point about our history, right? And the atrocities and them not believing that God is watching. There's one thing that really stuck with me in college, and I just can't even believe that I allowed for this to happen. I should have stood up and said something to the professor, but they pushed Karl Marx. They pushed his ideology, and I didn't know this, but I did a little research on Karl Marx, and he was just not a happy guy. He was covered in boils. He was just not happy, and his family was not happy. His family was on the brink. I think somebody committed suicide in his family, and he was just not a happy guy. Raging atheist, just spoke out against God all of the time. It was his dominant religion, and I just think you're so right when you say, just let it play out and see what happens. And that's the whole marketplace of ideas. What helps people and what makes people happy is inevitably, I believe that's going to rise to the top. Whether it's the truth or not, who knows? But let's just let society decide what we talk about, what we believe in, and then if everybody's happier, then what's the problem?
So you believe a society will function best and thrive if it has Christian values baked into it. However, you still respect the freedom of religion. You still believe that's a must.
Fact, I think it actually argues the Christian faith even more. I would love to, people who believed in the spaghetti monster or whatever.
Flying spaghetti monster, sure.
Flying spaghetti monster, right? I would love for more ideas like that to come out, because it's it puts up my idea and it makes my idea sound even better, right?
Oh, yeah.
Comparison. It sounds better, right? And sorry to all the spaghetti flying monster religious zealots out there. I'm very sorry if I offended you, but it just sounds better. And the point of having all these ideas, the bad ones, they just prop up the good ones even more, and at a faster rate and at a more immense rate.
Just from what we've said so far in this conversation, you must not be scared of offending people or ticking people off. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
No, I don't. I'm not afraid of offending people. I don't, because if you offend somebody, I would rather offend somebody and somebody tell me that I offended them and give me a reason why I offended them than just shut my mouth. I would much rather. I don't have a very good filter. There's something in radio. It's called the dump button, and it gives you like a quick 8 seconds to knock yourself off the air, because it's a delay on radio. There's like a small little delay, so that way if a caller comes in and cusses, then you can dump them off the air. I have a little dump button, and my finger is on there all of the time because I tend to, get a little mouthy, and I'm like, I can't say that, can't say that, can't say that. And it's just like, when in society, and when did this happen where I was just constantly worried about, hey, I can't say that, or I can't say that, or I can't say that. When did that happen? And I wish that we would be able to have more conversation. And I think that's why these kids are just so engraved into their phones, because they're not willing to tell somebody and look somebody in the eye and say, I didn't like that you said that, and here's why. Mm-hmm. And then we could have a conversation about it, Paul. And that's that's what I miss. I would love to have a raging liberal look me in the eye. My phone blows up every day with people behind the keyboard warriors, I call them, every day, calling me mean names, coming after me. And it's just like, I would love for you to come into my office, sit down, have a cup of coffee, tell me why I offended you. And then we can have a conversation about why you believe what you believe. And we're missing that.
Mm-hmm. And you have to be willing, though, to admit when they're right and maybe you were in the wrong, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's happened multiple times, especially with this girl I was talking to. She transgender this morning, right? And I used to believe that being a homosexual, being transgender, that it was totally just manufactured in their head, that they were not truly that way. I've changed my position on that, and I admitted, I'm sorry, and hey, I did not realize you had felt this way and those uncontrollable urges. And then I did even more research. Instead of just listening to somebody about their testimony about how they actually were attracted to the opposite or the same sex, I did some research, and I saw that there are people who experience hormonal imbalances. There's people who experience something in their heads where they, have to act on those sexual urges. I've done some homework on it, and you can change your feelings or beliefs all of the time. I think I do it every 5 minutes. I change my feelings about things all of the time. Like with this abortion draft, I was thinking that maybe a liberal justice leaked it out. Her name's Sayota Mayora. I was thinking maybe a liberal justice leaked it on purpose in order to get us to get riled up about it, or to maybe change the decision somehow. This morning, I was like, maybe it was a conservative. Maybe a conservative really wanted abortion on the ballot in order to try to get this pro-life movement moving. And, it could have been a mixture of both. So actually, Abraham Lincoln and Stephen Douglas, when in their debates, they went around with these debates, in the 1860s, I think it was, and they actually knew each other very, very well. And they did these debates, and they didn't even have to do these debates because the Illinois senators at the time were going to vote on the U.S. senators. So unlike it is today, U.S. senators are appointed by, or voted on by the people. A U.S. senator is on your ballot. Illinois senators at the time were the ones who voted for the U.S. senators. So they didn't have to go around to all of these different communities and host debates and try to win the people on their side. Stephen Douglas obviously advocating for the end of for slavery, and then Abraham Lincoln obviously advocating for ending slavery. Mm-hmm. So they didn't have to do that. I think that they came together and they said, let's put slavery on the ballot and let's host all of these debates and get people talking about it. In fact, they even hired media outlets. They've hired the Chicago Tribune. I know Abe Lincoln hired the Chicago Tribune to push out this narrative of ending slavery. They wanted slavery on the ballot. So maybe, just maybe, a conservative and a liberal on that justice, those justices, they came out and linked that together. Mm-hmm. So I changed that today. I was like, oh, it was the liberal justice 100%. And then I was like, no, maybe a conservative and a liberal were trying to put this on the ballot. Maybe they're working together.
Interesting. I'm going to ask you about that in a second. But as for your willingness to offend, it makes sense. You have to be willing to step on some toes in the pursuit of truth. You know what I mean? Yeah. You have to be willing to offend when you're pursuing truth. Sometimes it hurts to get to the truth, but you gotta hash things out, and you have to be willing to offend people. But also, you said you would like to have coffee with a raging liberal and figure out what it was that you said that offended them. And I think that's actually beautiful. In fact, I think that's why podcasts are really, really valuable, because me and you can sit and hash things out for an hour plus 2 hours, and it's that simple. I hear you out and I shut my mouth when I'm done talking, and I listen to you. And likewise. And I just think that's how we unify. Looking ahead, because we're divided so greatly right now as a society, because we're not talking to each other. We have to talk to each other more, and you have to talk respectfully to each other and listen to each other and try to understand one another. So I just think it's important to say that, you should have coffee with someone that you disagree with.
And don't be afraid to stop biting your tongue. That's my advice to especially the younger generation. Do not bite your tongue. If you want to say it, say it. And then, I always say, ask for forgiveness later, right? That's ask for forgiveness. Don't ask permission, just ask for forgiveness later. Mm-hmm. And I think that we've lost that, and I would love to. And that's actually why, so the Morning Buzz, it's weekdays, and that's the show I host. The reason why I called it The Buzz, and we called it The Buzz, was because there's nothing that a cup of coffee and a conversation can't do in order for us to start loving each other again. And the reason why I chose to call it The Buzz is because you get a buzz off coffee, and the show logo is a cup of coffee, and there's like some stains on it and everything, because I'm sure I've said some things that make you want to throw the coffee at me, and it's going to stain up all of the papers. But yeah, there's nothing that can't be discussed over a cup of coffee at some place,
Mm-hmm. I love it, and I completely agree. But you mentioned the potential overturning, the leaked draft from the Supreme Court, where they said that they plan on reversing Roe v. Wade and making the issue of abortion a state issue. No longer will it be federally legal everywhere, but it'll go back to the state. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that is something that's very overdue. I think that actually Jane Roe, which was an anonymous name that she was given in order to protect her identity during the case, I think that she realized that this case she has come out openly and said that she's regretted her abortion before.
Really?
Not a lot of people know that. Yes, a lot of people don't know that she has actually came out and said that she regrets having her abortion. And and I hate to draw this parallel, but I'm going to, slavery, right? People thought that black slaves were not humans in the 1800s. We are on we're fighting for the unborn to be recognized as humans. That's what pro-lifers are doing. And people thought that they were crazy back then, too. The people who were fighting Republicans naturally back in the 1800s, they were also fighting for the rights of black slaves, to at least be recognized as humans. And they were seen as crazies, wingnuts. And they were like, no, you're fascists and blah, 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 and you hate America and stuff like that. That's exactly what was happening in the 1800s. So I think that you fast forward, and this is just a step in the right direction to recognizing them as humans. States taking over taking this over, I do see where there is going to be some legal regimes taking place. There is going to be a whole different conversation, a whole different attitudes towards states working together. So if I go have an abortion in Connecticut and I live in Missouri, how is Connecticut and Missouri going to work this out where they can actually, or if somebody comes here to Illinois and has an abortion and then they go back to their red state? Like, what if the red state finds out, and what are they going to do to Illinois that performs that? It's going to be tough, but I think that it needs to be done because we are fighting for the recognition of the unborn as human. Like, we are fighting to recognize unborn children as humans, and it's a fight that needs to be done or had.
Mm-hmm. What do you say to people that say, what about women who get pregnant because of rape?
Oh, gosh.
You hear that a lot. So
yes, a lot. Way too much for it to even. So rape, right, it only accounts for 0.01% and in total. So rape, incest, or defects with the birth or problematic pregnancies within the mother. That accounts for 3% of all abortions. 97% of all abortions come from socioeconomic reasons. At least that's what they've pulled. And I don't know where I got that from, but I can give you show notes.
Sure.
But it's just a stat that has stuck with me because it's not even relevant to really talk about, but I'll talk about it. I do think that if you are raped, that is a tragedy. And, being somebody who really has had a type of experience, and I know a lot of people. I think 1 in every 3 women are sexually assaulted. 1 in every 5 women are raped, which is kind of alarming that number isn't even higher for abortions, right? Because we have a lot of women who are raped. There is something that you can take when you go into a hospital. If you were a rape victim, you can take a pill. They'll give you a pill and they ask you there. So you do have the choice to eliminate your pregnancy there. And then you can take that pill up to, I forget how many days, but you can go back in and take that pill, and it's a medically induced abortion. I'm actually an advocate for that. A medically induced abortion that kind of just wipes it. Now, I do believe life starts at conception, but there are exceptions to that right? If you don't want it, and if you don't want to continue to full term or to at least 6 weeks, then you can do that. I think that was a reasonable response. The question isn't whether, we are in a spot where we have to start looking at the numbers and we have to start looking at the abuses of abortion. It's not like rape victims are abusing abortion, right? A lot of them do take that pill as soon as they come in, and I'm okay with that. I have a problem with taking a baby out of somebody's womb via forceps, or, and I'm not even for really birth control, because I do believe life starts at conception, and if it's God's plan, it's God's plan. But I would even say to a rape victim, what is this going to do to you on an emotional level, a mental level? And is this going to help you in aborting life that was, come about an unfortunate even isn't a strong enough word, but a devastating way it was bestowed upon you, this child? Is it going to make you feel better taking that life away? And if they say yes, I am okay. Well, you have to accept that you are taking away a life. And I do think that there are good examples of taking away a life. Sometimes, you just don't. We do it all the time, right? If somebody were to barge into my house, I'd shoot them, right? And I would feel justified in doing that. There's a degree of violence that is acceptable. And we have to recognize that that's killing a baby. And is it just? Yes, if a rape victim is doing it and they're doing it medically induced, and it's not 6 weeks into the pregnancy or 7 weeks, 10 weeks, 15, 20.
Okay. Well, for the sake of being logically consistent here, I want you to elaborate on this a little bit. Mm-hmm. But you say life does begin at conception, and in the case of a standard third trimester abortion, you're killing a baby, but you will also say that when you take, one of those abortion pills immediately after a rape, that if that does end a pregnancy, that too is killing a baby. Mm-hmm. But you're saying that, and correct me if I'm wrong, although that is still killing a baby, it's morally permissible to do that in the case of rape, but only in those slim cases. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say it's just. I don't know if it's morally. I would even say that that's not morally right. So if I was faced with that predicament, and as a woman, I would not abort because there is something to be said about morality. I think that it's just to kill a baby after you've been raped because of the way that baby came about. I just think that I don't think it's morally right to kill a baby, but I do think that it's just in some way, shape, or form. And we're talking like small amount of people this happens to.
I think I at least have to really respect your ability to not use euphemisms and to just say what you think very clearly. I mean, you said it right there. I've never heard anyone say it so clearly, but you're saying the truth. This is actually what you believe. You're saying that I believe that it's morally, or that it's just to kill a baby in the instance of rape. And, although I don't agree with you personally, I at least respect that you put it clearly. You were honest.
It's
Sometimes
just.
people, they say like, women's rights, I want to protect women's rights. And it's like, what's that mean? Because does that mean you can kill a baby a minute before it exits the female body? And people just use these general umbrella terms that imply something totally different. They're euphemisms. They're nice sounding things for terrible things. But again, I really like that you're
killing a baby. And
right.
If I was faced with that decision, I would evaluate and I'd be like, am I going to kill this baby or am I going to carry it to term? And if you're all right with the act of killing, and some people are, I don't know if I'd be able to kill somebody. I've never been in that predicament. I would like to think that if in the act of, and in a way, in the moment of being raped, there's no way to defend yourself, right? In a way, the act of killing that baby is the act of defense. You don't want your rapist to continue to traumatize you. And that's where I think a rape victim would say, yeah, I'm going to abort this baby. I'm going to kill this baby because this is my act of defense. I was defenseless here, but I'm going to abort this baby, kill this baby, and this is my act of defense. And that's where I think rape victims, get their final act of defense. And that's why I think it's just like it would be just if I popped somebody who came into my house and threatened me. I would justify that and say, well, that was my act of defense. I would say that killing a baby in that moment, medically induced, not waiting a long time. You have to, and that's where the convolution and where we use those euphemisms, like you were talking about, Paul, is dangerous because you just have to be honest with a rape victim. Like they're going through a lot. You've got to be honest with a rape victim and just say, are you willing to kill this baby or do you want to carry it to term? And they have to make all kinds of decisions, thereafter. They have to make all kinds of decisions and grapple with what had just happened with them. I think the last thing that they want is a euphemism, I would imagine. Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting stuff. And Kat, we're getting towards the end of this thing. We started off the whole conversation with, is there a great red wave coming through Illinois and potentially through the United States? And are there any young conservatives still out there? First of all, you went to college at ISU. Are there young conservatives out there still?
It feels like there's not, but there is. And I think that we have really silenced ourselves. That whole biting your tongue thing is really huge on college campuses and even bigger in high schools. And, I think that we need to stop with the stifling and stop with the doxing, the censorship, and we need to start lifting those conservative voices up. And I would encourage every single conservative out there, young conservative especially, just speak up. Speak out, reach out to me, and we will reach out to your local GOP, reach out to other constitutional conservatives, and realize that you're not alone in this. And I think that's we're a silent majority. That silent majority is really real.
Right. And maybe I would say this, I'm going to add my own little thing, for both sides, the left and the right, especially on college campuses. Engage in these important controversial conversations often, but don't come to the conversation with your fists up, when you're starting in a defensive mode and you're ready to, counter what these people have to say. Instead, come with your hands down and listen to what they're saying, and you might just be surprised. I've seen it in my own life, when you put your hands down, you listen to someone, then you work to understand them. They're like, hey, this person's not just here to sock me in the face, and they're not setting me up. They actually want to understand. So maybe now I'll listen and understand to them. So have these conversations. Don't be scared to say these things, but also listen to the other side and don't fight so hard. I shouldn't say don't fight, but don't get so defensive and assume that this person wants the worst. Just show them. Lead by example.
They're not going to kill you. Or even better, wrap them around a cup of coffee. Pay for the guy's cup of coffee. You know what I mean? Go. Like, that's what you do. You invite somebody out to a cup of coffee, wrap them around, and there's nothing that can't be settled over a cup of coffee and just a little bit of discourse.
Right. And a lot of people will say right now in society that the pendulum has swung very far left. And some people think that it's coming right back to the right. Literally, there's a red wave coming. Do you think that that is the case in Illinois, maybe the United States?
Yeah, I do think that is the case in Illinois, and it starts at that gubernatorial race. I've said it multiple times. If I were voting today, I'd vote for Darren Bailey. I do believe that we have to put America first, and people who are very blatant about their faith in positions of government. I think that's something that we've lost over the years, and it's not working for us. And left, atheist, whatever you are, you have to come to terms with this. This is not working for us. It's not working for us. Let's try it the other way. Let's see what happens. And that's that pendulum swing. And I do think that a red wave, but it also starts here in our communities. So there's county board candidates up. There's county board elections. There's local elections. There's school board elections. And, people like our age need to start getting into these positions of government and start making a difference. And even if you are more left-leaning, try it, right? Try running for some sort of local office. It will definitely benefit Bloomington Normal, and I don't see any issue with trying, right?
Some people think that maybe there should be an age limit to who can run for government, because when you get, 80 years old, it's tough to really have the capacity to welcome new ideas and to change and, to have that energy and to, have that drive type of thing. Elon Musk is big on, he's only concerned with people because people are going to quickly be able to live to 150 given, scientific and technological advancements and health advancements. People are going to live for a really long time. He says, we might want to make it so you can only be so old if you want to run for office. And maybe he's right, but we need more young people.
We do. I think that young voice is something that is just, it is dry, and we need it here in Bloomington Normal specifically. And we need it specifically from the right. We need conservatives to speak out and stop biting your tongue. Just stop doing it. I should clarify, we need smart young people. There's a lot of dumb young people. Yeah, there really is.
Yeah.
Gosh.
So, I don't know what you want to do with that, everyone listening, but yeah, we need smart young people in office. But anyway, Cat Petersen, I really appreciate your time. This has been a wonderful conversation. Again, you're a good mind. You've got a great show, and people should tune in on 92.9 to listen to on Saturday mornings. What time? And what's the show name?
So it's Monday through Friday. That's the Morning Buzz from 6A to 9A. And then you can also tune in for Conservative Cat. That's where I go into a lot of conspiracy theories. And I put on my tinfoil hat. That's Saturdays 5 to 7. So thanks so much for having me on, Paul. This was so fun.
Right on. Hey, it is my pleasure. And thank you, everyone, for watching and listening to The Paul Garcia Show. Cat Petersen, you're awesome. Thank you so much.
Bye.